Okay, so I think the interview is on now. So I'm gonna start by first introducing myself. So my name is Ronald Mashalane, and I'm a student from Wits University, and I'm doing my honors in urban and regional planning. And yes, so can you please tell us more about yourself? What is it that you do? And yes.
Okay, so I am Dumisani Bosoga. I'm a town planner by profession, professional town planner. I'm a sole founder and the current CEO of Noksa 23 Holdings, which is a holding of companies, and one of them is Noksa 23 Development Planners, where we do town planning. And yeah, the other companies do many other things that they are involved in, but we are more in the property sector, if I can say.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
that's very informative. So for my next question, and in relation to my research, so my research is more about precinct planning and informal traders. So we're looking at how precinct planning is actually how does it impact on informal traders. So from your point of view and from your understanding, what is precinct planning and what are actually informal traders? And what do we mean when we say precinct planning? And what do we mean when we say informal traders?
Okay, so present planning will mean a lot of things from different people, but maybe let me put it this way. You choose an area that you demarcate and say, I want to zoom into detail. So there's
Yes.
different planning in policy, because present planning is part of the policy planning or the forward planning. That's how it's known to be forward planning. So, but in this instance, then you become detail. So you can choose 3 streets, you can choose 2 streets, you can choose 5 streets, you know.
Yes.
However, you limit it to a space where you'll be able to look at each and every character, each and every attribute of that area. You know, if it's a street, then you'll say you have 5 houses, then they are zoned whatever residential, then you have 10 spaces or parcels of land that can be used for industrial or logistics hub, you know, all of those things.
Yes.
But
Yes. Yes.
it's normally on an area that would be concentrated on a certain economic activity also. So not just any, but it has to have some economic activity significance or historical significance. And obviously the historical and the heritage significance then translate into an economic activity. Okay. Then with your informal traders, they are used to call hawkers in the olden days. So those would be traders that are not regulated. Some of them saw an opportunity on a certain corner or a certain street for the product that they have. And they've been there for some time and they sell and it works for them. It makes them the income that they are looking into or that they are looking for. So the only thing is that they might not carry a permit. You know, a simple one would be a health certificate if they are selling food. You know, because when you sell food and you need a health certificate, you need to have premises at least so that they can come and inspect them, then give you a health certificate. There might be in an area that it's said they are unauthorized to be there. However, due to the spatial dynamics and also our historical background, some of them, unfortunately, where they are, it suits them and it works for them and it benefits them and their families survive from some of those. Yeah.
That's very good. Thank you for that. In relation to yeah, I think you have touched on to some of the challenges that informal traders usually face, like especially when you mentioned something to do with unauthorized access to certain spaces, actually. So what would you say that what are some of the biggest impediments in South Africa in terms of recognizing the informal sector and actually harnessing its potentials? Because I'm asking this question in relation to how in most African cities, I think it's documented well through YouTube, through certain medias, scholars, and also people in practice actually. So it's documented that the informal sector, it's like pretty much the bloodline of most African economies. So with that respect, it shows that it is a very important sector. So what are some of like the main challenges from your point of view in relation to that in actually that impede the harnessing of this sector?
Okay, so let me give you a response from my background. I was once an informal trader, you know, when I was still at school, when I was doing, I think, my grade 11, grade 12. So whenever the school holidays, we used to go to a place called Kempton Park, and we used to sell diapers, you know, your so-called Pampers and Huggies, but those, you know, were the ones that didn't carry those big names, you know. So we used to sell.
Yes,
So we
yes.
would identify a spot and go there and sell, and we found that it was making us money, it was working, so you see. However, the biggest thing that I think we tend to forget when we get into this so-called offices and get these jobs that needs to regulate and all of that, we forget the historical background to say we still have a lot or a big size, you know, a sizable chunk of our population that is illiterate. You know, when you drive into Tembisa and you find Mama Maluleka selling mealies and oranges on the corner and you tell them about a permit, they are in the dark. They don't even know what is that. You know, you are telling them about something that they don't know of. And it becomes sad that we target the poor of the poor and we still abuse them and we still make them to even become more poor, how we deal with them, than for the so-called authorities. I've seen this many times. The so-called authorities to guide them to say, Mama Maluek, we are not going to remove you, but we are giving you 30 days. In this 30 days, we'll bring this application form, take it home to your child, whomever, they must fill it for you and all of that, so that you can get a permit to trade in. What does that mean? And also, maybe this is not the area we normally allow you to trade. So we'll take you to an area where you can trade and where you can enjoy the benefits of trading. However, also, I must put it a big however. You must not remove them and put them 5-10 kilometers away from where they are, which is next to home, because it means they must again use transport to go there, which is money that they don't have. So we are in Africa here. We are not in Europe. I think that's one of the things that we have to be very clear about. We are in Africa, and Africa has its own challenges, and we have to deal with African challenges the African way. Even when we do these bylaws and everything else, let's stop doing them in a Eurocentric way. We are not in Europe. We are not in the US. And you look at a lot of our policies, they don't talk to our ground challenges. You know, they talk to someone who's like me in the office with an aircon, with a laptop and a computer. But you forget the bloodline. It's still those people that are out there. You have people selling in trains, in taxi ranks. Those are informal traders. And we call them informal. We have a big economic backbone, which is the taxis. They are informal, but they are operating. You know, go and stop them from operating at the taxi ranks where they are. They'll show you dust. You see. So because now Mama Maluleka doesn't have someone to support her, doesn't have powers and all of that, you have our metros, and I'm putting it very clear, our metros, going there, abusing them. We've seen them on YouTube, how they take their stock away, how they talk to them. They don't come to them and say, Mama Maluleka, this is how the city wants things to work. Where you are, it's not a permissible area for you to be. However, we'll give you time because we understand you are supporting your kids. We'll give you time to apply and get your papers in order. And also, we might need to move you here, just around the corner where you can be, because there it's safe, it's demarcated. Show people why. That way, you are also teaching and educating them, you know. But how it's currently being done, you know, I'm not even apologetic about it. I'm not even sorry about it. I'm a town planner, but I feel I'm also failing a whole lot of hawkers and informal traders out there, because we have all this nice precinct plan, SDFs, and all of those things. Those things are irrelevant for our people. They mean nothing. They look good on paper, which we waste a lot of money on tendering on them. We waste a lot of money on printing them out. We waste a lot of money on doing GIS maps, but those mean zero. If a man, a woman on the street does not understand the impact it has on their daily lives. Yeah.
No, that's a very well-depth answer, sir. I think I agree with you overall. I mean, like, I think the current regulatory framework, through my studies, through my undergrad studies, think most scholars do actually criticize most the regulatory frameworks of most African cities, including South Africa as well. But I'm not too familiar if you're aware of the new policy in Johannesburg that was implemented last year, the informal traders policy. Are you aware of it, sir?
I've heard about it. I've not had time to peruse it and follow
Oh,
it very
okay.
well. However, there's a video I saw late last year, if not early this year, somewhere in Auckland Park. No, somewhere in Bramfontein, I think. You know, they were removing this other lady. It was a painful thing to watch, you know, because they were trying to implement that policy. And I think even the people that are sent on the ground, that are the law enforcers, I don't think
Yes.
they are well trained to deal with these issues. They go there with emotions and go there to want to stamp the law and to want to ensure that they put down the law and everything else. You can't say I've broken a law up until you really at least explain it to me, because I don't know how to read. How do I break a law if I don't know how to read? It's a different issue if I've ignored it and I can read. But when you give the very same lady that law, she can't even utter even a single word from that thing. So I've not went through it, but I'll make time and just go through it. And I hope it you know, it works with the people. It's for the people. It's not against the people.
Yes, well, I have gone through over it and I've had like some discussions with, I think, one of the employees at the Department of Economic Development. And then one of the things that he mentioned was like, upon the coming up of the policy, there was extensive public participation that was taken. Like, for instance, so they will call like your informal traders organizations, maybe leaders of these informal traders organizations, and they will come and they will discuss their issues and what they actually feel like should happen going forward. So he also mentioned some of the challenges. So to him, the CT in relation to public participation, there wasn't any challenges. So, but from my undergrad and my studies, and as well as discussing with my fellow colleagues and my fellow lecturers, there was this concept that was introduced, I think, this year by the facilitator of this very same course. It's the concept was the black box. So it's this idea that we know something, but we are not necessarily aware how did this certain solution or or element that came about. So this will be issues relating to public participation, how certain views are actually get translated to certain plans, to eventually like your IDPs, your precinct plans. How does, so from your point of view, what is the biggest challenge of public participation, and does it adequately include, or does it adequately become inclusive to informal traders from your experience?
Right. Okay, so public participation, I think, is one of the strongest tool that we can use. It's one of the strongest tool where we can connect an office person and a person on the street, so that, because at the end of the day, we are the same. It's just that others might have just a privilege of achieving certain things at a certain time in their lives. But at the end of the day, all of us are striving to survive. More than any other thing is to survive, to feed our families and all of that. So public participation tool has not been used effectively. It has been politicized, you know, because I can tell you now, you'll have a policy like that one. You look at where the meetings are held, you know, in these poshy hotels or community halls that are, you know, it doesn't go to really the real people, because I'm saying, why don't you sometimes just get younger people that are doing research than like yourselves, and say we are demarcating Bramfontein. We know there's hawkers here or the informal traders. Here is a questionnaire. Go to each and every one of them. Just ask them their challenges. That's public participation. Public participation doesn't mean we need to have a meeting in a hall and we have this nice cameras and people speaking this nice English that doesn't take us anywhere. Because I still say, if majority of our population is illiterate or they don't understand some of these things, we are wasting money unnecessarily. We will not even reach the goal of ensuring that South Africa reaches a certain milestone economically, socially, or whatsoever that you can call, you know. So I know they do IDPs once a year. Those meetings, when you get there, I've attended several of them, even when I was working in government. When you get there, they are more political than real issues. You know, Babasi Tole is struggling with street lights. You want to come and tell him about the numbers? We have so many millions that we have budgeted, and no, when are you putting in street lights? And what is the assurance that street lights will be there? Because even if you tell me about these millions and trillions that you have budgeted and whatsoever, I want to see street lights. How you bring them in and whatsoever, I care less, because I pay rates and taxes. I pay my taxes. This is what I want to see, you know. Why don't you do them in groupings? Even then you call it bigger meetings, but make smaller groupings where people can express themselves, take their point, and also start doing workshops to workshopping them. Because one of the things I can ask now is that the very same policy of the city of Johannesburg, of the informal traders, how many workshops have they conducted for the informal traders? Which areas can they really prove they have went? Did they even go to the informal settlements where these things are taking place? Did they go to the old training stations where these things are taking place? Or did they just look at, in Santin, we don't want an informal trader, in Rosebank and all of that? It's irrelevant there. It's not relevant there. Take it to Ekasi, on the streets of Ekasi, and work it through there. Then you'll say it's a policy for the people, by the people. It must not be the policy of the city. No, who's the city? You know, city doesn't pay any rates and taxes. So I hope our leaders can get to a position and a point, even those who are in management, directors, executive directors, to a point where they understand to say public participation is to ensure that at least 80% of our people in Oakshire, they've went through this thing, they understand its implication, and we are now starting to workshop them so that they understand, you know, because it's not the first policy that they have on informal traders. They might have just amended it. After 2 years, they'll call Dumisani from a tender to do another one. I make it look beautiful and good English. But how does it impact on the men on the street, you see? Because it has to talk, you know, let's just to diverge a bit. It has to talk to how do you put a structure for an informal trader? When it's raining, when it's summer, can they survive there? When it's winter, you know, does it have lighting if they work longer hours? Is it safe? Is there security moving around? Because I doubt that in our country, if you provide proper services, people will not want to pay. This analogy of people don't want to pay, I'm against it. I've been in a position where I've met people that are running, you know, the business that people take for granted, but they are willing to pay. They say, give me electricity where I'm at. I'll buy that electricity. I'll pay for it, you know. So if we create stalls that are proper, that are safe, that are warm, that can, you know, can adapt to different weather patterns and temperatures and all of that, and the security in the vicinity, you know, I doubt if those people will not want to comply, they will not want to pay. Same as with the people from health. When they get there, you know, I once went on a site inspection. The attitude when you approach, it's important. Can say, yeah, why are you here, Nina? No, sanibonani manager. There's a law that says you are not supposed to be here, so. Why are you here? Then let's understand the person and teach them and remove them properly. Not to just take their things, and most of them, they take these things, when they have to go and bail those things out wherever they are, half of their stock is missing, half of their stock is damaged. That person has lost, has to start again from scratch, you know. So Let's find ways of using public participation the proper way. They are means, they are means, and it's the most powerful tool that we can ever use with our community.
No, that was very nice. I agree with most of the things that you say. I feel like it's the only tool that we can use to actually put informal traders at the center of policy discussions, or whenever there's like a new SDF or IDP being done. I think that's a very powerful tool as well. So I'm totally for that. Just to answer your questions in relation to how many workshops has the city of Johannesburg done to in relation to the new policy. So the policy was actually accepted and implemented. So far, the city has actually done public consultation in all regions besides Region D. Yeah, I think it's a region D. So in Region D, they haven't necessarily had extensive consultations, but yes, according to the information that I've received, they still yes going ahead with with the public consultation. Well, the manner in which it is done, you mentioned, like using public or expensive hotels or using community halls that actually are far away from the people. Like one thing that I will know is that they will normally host this public participation at Metrolink, for example. And like when you look at Metrolink, it's more or less far away from like places like Orange Farm, places like Soweto. So then you're like, okay, if this policy is meant for the poorest of the poor, and then the poorest of the poor can't even get to these spaces that you guys provided. So it kind of like inhibits and impedes on the whole process and how it's meant to achieve certain issues. So to my next question, so one of the ways that scholars and various people, practitioners have actually expressed was like, let's formalize the sector. Let's make them more formal. So in relation to that, I'm not. I don't know if you're familiar to this new ILO. It's the International Labor it's the International Labor Unit, I think. So what they did, they came up with this recommendation called R204. So it actually talks about so it provides like recommendations on how to actually formalize this sector of informal traders. So it touches on issues such as public protection, social protection, actually. So things like how do you now provide protection to this sector in relation to like women? So since we know that majority of traders in most, even in city of Johannesburg, so it's like most of them are women. So it's like how do you provide social protection? So issues like providing infrastructures and stuff. So according to you, in what ways can planners actually contribute to the social protection of informal traders as a whole?
So I think as planners, and because I've been in the field now for 18 years, and one of the things that I am recognizing every day is that most of our graduates, we have limited planning to your land use applications. We have limited it to the so-called implementation of spatial development frameworks, but planning has to be a living tool that we use every day. It has to be more about the people than about any other thing, And one of the things that I'm realizing every day is we need to change how we do certain things. And one of those things is who are we planning for in their absence? Because if we plan for them but they are absent, then we are not planning for them because we are thinking they might want this, they might need this, which is not always the correct thing or the truth, I know that planning now has to be inclusive of safety. Whatever you do, you need to start thinking of safety. And we have alarming crime levels in our country. You know, planners can play a big role. How we plan our new cities, how we enhance our existing cities, because unfortunately we cannot do away with them. They exist, but how we enhance them. We have to work with the security forces now. You know, we have to work with police. Because how certain streets are planned and opened and widened and all of that, they say a whole lot of things, because they're just this corridor of darkness, you know, even during the day, you know. So if we are to say, let's assist informal traders, the first thing is, let's look at security. And security in a way that they can protect themselves as different traders, but also there is security personnel within the vicinity. You know, you'll be surprised that when you drive or walk in Marshalltown, in Joburg, Bramfontein, you always see the securities that are on the corners. But you go now into, Bree, you know, most of the time you don't even see. You go into the MTN taxi rank where people are concentrated. You don't see these people, you know. So you have this nice clean streets, then you have this place where it's like it's, you know, Sodom, you know, where things just go messy and so those are the things that police have to be more visible. You know, policing has to be an intentional thing. Even us as the members of the public, we have to own up to our security. You know, when we see something wrong, I must not say, Mina, I'm not coming. They can see whatever they do. But when the same thing happens to me, I want to look at everybody and say, why are you not helping? So we need to go back to the thing of, you know, in Africa, we call it Ubuntu, Botu. You know, I don't know what is it in English. It doesn't have a word. People dilute it. There's no word to translate it into English, but Ubuntu, you know. So maybe the loose word is a brother keeper, you see, so that you are looking after your brother. You know, maybe you can put it like that. So we need that. And if we can strengthen the security part, placing of informal traders will be very easy, because after that, that's when you educate them to say, you are selling. Part of you selling and to make sure that your place is safe, it's clean, it's neat. You need to, the second thing is cleanliness. You know, make sure that you clean around where you are. Make sure you teach your customers after they buy, here is a bin, they must throw the rubbish into this, you see. Then the third thing is that you are making money out of this. It might not be a lot of money, but maybe every month, just pay 100 rands as a tariff towards council, because they come, they clean, there's a security that looks after you. Those things have to be paid for. Everyone then starts benefiting, you see. So we have to look at those things. And whether, I know in our country we have high crime instances of, you know, females and children and all of that, but unfortunately we have to take care of them. We have to protect them, because we have more single parents households, and there are more women than males. They have to go and make something for their kids. They have to go and, you know, get their kids bread, unfortunately. And some of them, most of them, the easier way that does not need a lot of money, doesn't need a lot of resources, is the informal way, you know. And I think it's time we also change to call it informal, because it's informal to who? It's informal to me who went to school, but to that person it's not informal. It's the way, because it's formal because they are not stealing. I think we have to look at it that way. It's formal because they are not stealing, but they are earning their livelihood in a best honorable way that is known to them. It's us who comes with this word, it's informal, and I'm asking, it's informal to what? You know, it's informal because it's not paying tax. So are we more concerned about the tax than saving someone else's life, than building a community? You know, taxes, yes, we have to pay. It's the law, we have to pay, you know. However, let's look at it in that context to say, let's put security. Unfortunately, we have to put security. We have to. Then from security is cleanliness. Then cleanliness then can come to rates and taxes and all these other things that we will then require later. That's how I would look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I fully agree with the points and some of the elements that you touched on. I think also one of the things that actually doesn't get like put onto the light is this issue of ablution facilities like your public toilets. And I feel like that just by having, it has been just near market centers or informal traders, it will be beneficial because now they can just like pick up whatever that they have and just put it inside the dustbin. Because one of the critics they normally say will be like, oh no, they impede on the sidewalks or they do all sorts of things, which I fully agree. There has to be order at some point in time so that things can function correctly. Like you can't have people just now clustering along sidewalks, at least, but let's have a proper enforcement and designated spaces. So even if when these spaces are there, there should be constant law enforcement checking if people are following by the rules, so that there's people that don't do whatever they do on their own accord. So I think also on that note, infrastructure such as toilets are very important. So just to wrap it up and just to, put your point of view, what what is what can planners as well as organizations such as SACPLAN do to actually recognize and make sure that all these challenges are actually recognized and addressed? And also like I'm also thinking about this planning law, this primary planning law called SPLUMA. How can SPLUMA also assist in relation to these issues that we have discussed today?
Yeah, okay. So I remember SPLUMA when it came, it was, when you read the preamble, it says bringing land use and spatial planning to work in harmony with each other, The reality is that every activity that we have, it needs a piece of land. So we cannot currently look at what is happening in KZN. It's issues of climate, and that started on a piece of land, so how we take care of our resource, which is a scarce resource, which is land, it's important. And that's where SPLUMA, it comes in strongly to say we have to protect this resource. However, this resource also has to make sure that we also survive as human beings, because then if we don't survive, then people become extinct, if I can put it that way, So we've been having workshops since the dawn of democracy. To date, we are going to 30 years, we workshopping. I still even ask this simple question. I need somebody to come and show me 30% of the SDF that has been implemented in any municipality in this country. In any municipality, I'm not disrespecting, but I'm saying we have all of these beautiful things, but we don't implement them. When it comes to implementation, I don't know, we are shy to implement, or we are not sure what we are implementing, or we are scared people will take us to court. And I think sometimes it's good when they take these things to court so that they test, so that we can even think thorough to say, is it the right thing we are doing or not? You see, the other thing, we need to open up no more workshop, but serious debates, because one of the things I've seen in the planning field, we are scared to debate. We are scared that if I put a thought, people are going to attack it. When they attack it, they are strengthening me. They are making me to go and do my research more, to think more. We'll never agree on everything. That's the reality. The way you think is not how I think. The way your experience and how you were groomed and where you grew is not where I grew and how I look at things, But there's a synergy where we can meet at times to get just things working and happening the correct way and benefiting. Because like now, in my generation where I am, it's important and it's very critical that I train young other planners that are going to take after me. But if I cannot even debate issues, if I cannot let them even debate issues with me, challenge my thinking and my thoughts, it's a problem. Because I can tell you, I have a whole lot of colleagues that are planners. We don't debate. We are scared to debate. We are scared to take our thoughts out. Because professor this and this has said this. Yes, he said it as a professor from his research or her research. But let's scrutinize it. Let's challenge it. Let's look at it from our point of view. And that way, we'll strengthen planning. Even the policy of the informal traders of Johannesburg, us first as the town planners needed to have sat down on a forum and thrashed that thing into pieces up until we say we agree with this, we don't agree with this. This will be implementable and not. So that when it moves to other professionals, they can see our thought and still debate and agree to disagree with our thoughts. But I can tell you, some of even the town planners that are working for the city, you ask them about the same policy, they would know nothing about it, because we are shy to come out to debate issues. And sometimes when people debate issues, we take them personal. It's not personal. It's a professional field. In a professional field, we must agree, we must disagree so that we can get to a point, When it comes to SACPLAN, I so pray that, one day it can be an institution that it's more functional, with all due respect. For me, it's currently not functional. I think it's more administrative, you can't see them. They are nowhere to be found, I know they have an office in Midrand. I pay my affiliation fees every year, but the issues that we are faced with on the ground, I don't see them. They are not there. I don't see them. They are missing in action, because like now I can ask to say the very same policy, were they involved and who did they involve? What comments did they get? When they see us quiet and not commenting on this thing, what are they saying? Because it's not just about them being there processing our qualification and our different categories, but it's for them to make sure that town planning become a living field, a living sector, because I can tell you now, it still surprises me that when I do developments and meet clients, because I'm in the private sector now, people still don't know about planners. They think planners are people that draw plans. They take town planners, they mix it with building plans. And you're like, no, I don't deal with building plans. Those are architects, you see. So it still says to me, the association or our council is still missing in action, and we need them to come up. Some of us are here to raise our hands to say we are more than willing to assist with no even compensation or anything, but to make sure that this field becomes a living field, so that even when you have younger people in high school, when they do grade 10, 11, they already know about planning. And what is it all about? It's not about rezoning subdivision. There's far more about planning than rezoning and subdivision, Yeah, so I'll say those will be my closing remarks to say, let's hold hands, let's work together as planners. Let's not be afraid to debate. When you have a different view, it's not personal. It's a view that you have. Let's look at it. Let's research. Let's build our own, our own reservoir of knowledge. Because I still believe in South Africa, we are missing a lot of reservoir of knowledge. I don't know now because you guys are at school. When I was at school before I graduated in 2006, we did European planning. There was nothing about South African planning. There was nothing. It didn't even talk about our rural, so-called rural development that now it's quiet. No one talks about it anymore. Maybe with you guys, you are doing the new waterfall, Santin planning. I don't know. With us, we never had any of that. We're always talking about piazzas, and we don't have a piazza in South Africa. I think it's in Italy. We're talking about Rome. We're talking about all of these things that I've never been there. I've never even, I see them on a book. And as a town planner, what you see on book and what you see in reality, two different, yeah. So that's me in short.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for such a wonderful interview and such a well-depth answers. Like, it's been a very, I don't know if it's 30 minutes or 40 minutes, but whatever minute it has been, it's been a wonderful conversation, conversing with you, sir. Like, I can tell you have a great deal of experience and knowledge in relation to the town planning field. Well, just to answer your question in relation to what we do now. Well, from my school in planning during my undergrad years all along, we did almost like I would say everything, bit of everything. We studied how planning started internationally around, like, of course, we're going to look at areas such as the US and the UK as well. And then we also look at how can we say cities have emerged in African cities. So we studied like places like Mapungube, we studied places like Timbuktu, different tribes that actually existed thousands and thousands of years. those places that you can regard like back when they existed, they were cities in general because they had like a population of somewhere around. But even how they were governed, we learn about different governance systems, and yeah. So far, that's what we learn, and also we learn, the transition from then to now, how things has been. So I'd say for now we are like learning. Thing is, like, we don't have any, I would say, like a built from the scratch town in terms of, or a city or a mega city in terms of like, that we can study in Africa. But at least we have like precedents that we can look at. So things like the examples that I've mentioned, Timbuktu in Mali, Mapungubwe, as well as Great Zimbabwe in Zimbabwe as well. So places like that we have studied. So even there's a course called Advanced Planning Thought, and like my course coordinator is Nwabide Malaza. So even her, like, she always pushes us to actually think outside the box and actually not be Eurocentric, and actually recognizes that different places have differences in them. So we have to recognize this idea of place differences, that what you plan in Soweto won't be necessarily the same in what you plan in Orange Farm, or the needs of the people that are there wouldn't necessarily be the same as the needs of the people in other places. So they always teach us this idea that, as you've also touched on that point as well, that okay, so I think the interview is on now. So I'm gonna start by first introducing myself. So my name is Ronald Mashalane, and I'm a student from Wits University, and I'm doing my honors in urban and regional planning. And yes, so can you please tell us more about yourself? What is it that you do? And yes.
Okay, so I am Dumisani Bosoga. I'm a town planner by professional town planner. I'm a sole founder and the current CEO of Noksa 23 Holdings, which is a holding of companies, and one of them is Noksa 23 Development Planners, where we do town planning. And yeah, the other companies do many other things that they are involved in, but we are more in the property sector, if I can say.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's very informative. So for my next question, and in relation to my research, so my research is more about precinct planning and informal traders. So we're looking at how precinct planning is actually, how does it impact on informal traders. So from your point of view and from your understanding, what is precinct planning, and what are actually informal traders, and what do we mean when we say precinct planning, and what do we mean when we say informal traders?
Okay, so precinct planning will mean a lot of things from different people, but maybe let me put it this way. You choose an area that you demarcate and say, I want to zoom into detail. So
Yes.
there's different planning in policy, because precinct planning is part of the policy planning or the forward planning. That's how it's known, to be forward planning. So, but in this instance, then you become detailed. So you can choose 3 streets, you can choose 2 streets, you can choose 5 streets,
Yes.
However, you limit it to a space where you'll be able to look at each and every character, each and every attribute of that area. If it's a street, then you'll say you have 5 houses, then they are zoned whatever residential, then you have 10 spaces or parcels of land that can be used for industrial or logistics hub, all of those things. But it's normally on an area that would be concentrated on a certain economic activity also. So not just anybody, it has to have some economic activity significance or historical significance. And obviously the historical and the heritage significance then translate into an economic activity. Okay. Then with your informal traders, they are used to call hawkers in the olden days. So those would be traders that are not regulated. Some of them saw an opportunity